Hello, I'm Stephen Robinson, and welcome to the Play Typer Guy podcast. Joining me today is my friend Raven Snook, editor in chief and digital services manager at TDF, and a theater critic for Time Out New York. I am delighted to have you back, Raven.
I am excited to be here. I should add, I'm also a Drama Desk nominator, which is a different award. It's sort of the Golden Globes to the Oscars, and Drama Desk to the Tonys. They made a lot of fun of it in the prom, which was hilarious. So I see everything, not just Broadway. But today I think we're going to just talk about Broadway. But a lot of Broadway comes from off Broadway. So
No. Well, I'll ask you about some off-Broadway, your opinion about kind of the season in general, but we'll start off, given that this is kind of a Tony Awards special, what your thoughts were about the upcoming the nominations, any surprises.
it pretty much went the way that I anticipated in the big award categories. The my big disappointment, I guess, if there is one, because overall, I think it was a very strong season. It was a sort of a weird season because I saw some shows that I think are going to be some of my favorites forever, and I saw definitely multiple shows that are going to be in my, like, on my deathbed, I'm going to wish I had that time back. There were some really really bad shows this season, like startlingly bad, but they were not nominated, which was great. My big disappointment was just, I loved Real Women Have Curves. And I have fought with men who've said that I'm being dismissive when I tell them they just don't get it. But the same way I just don't get Glengarry Glen Ross because I have a vagina, they don't get Real Women Have Curves. I mean, some do, but generally it got nice reviews, not raves, but every woman I know who's seen it absolutely adores it. I adored it. And it only got, I think, 2 nominations. I should actually pull up the list just so I don't misspeak. And it didn't get nominations, I mean, for Best Musical. It didn't get a nomination for, I'm probably going to kill her name, Tatiana, the lead woman. But now I'm really embarrassed that I don't know her name. She's new to the scene, but she was just absolutely phenomenal. So, that for me was the biggest disappointment. I was surprised that Dead Outlaw only had 7. I think it's a really strong musical. My favorite musical this season was maybe Happy Ending, and it tied for the most Tony nominations with Death Becomes Her and Buena Vista Social Club. Death Becomes Her is a total hoot. It is such an improvement on a movie that people remember fondly but don't remember accurately, because it's really not that great a movie. They're great scenes and great moments, and they really found a way to expand on it and change it in a way that made a lot more sense, felt much less misogynistic, and actually sustained the comedy almost to the end. And Buena Vista Social Club, it's like a joy bomb, right? Even though they're going through the Cuban Revolution, they record this great album, 30 years later. So it's wonderful. But I feel like Dead Outlaw and maybe Happy Ending are the 2 most original musicals, not just because they're not based on pre-existing intellectual property, but just in terms of their approach to quirky stories, having really strong books. Books are often the downfall of musicals. So this is my long-winded way of saying it's been a very good season, and my big disappointment was Real Women Have Curves, which is a very traditional musical, not getting more love. It's not getting a lot of, it's not getting the audience it deserves, and I don't think it'll be around that long. And I really loved it. And the lead in it, Tatiana Cordoba, is just stunning. It's an absolutely stunning debut. So that was sad to me. I was also sad that Helen J. Shen, who's making her Broadway debut in Maybe Happy Ending and has done a lot of great work off Broadway, she did not get a nomination. And I thought that was really unfair, because she and Darren Criss, it's not a 2-person musical. There are other people, but it's mainly a 2-person musical, and they both deserve to be nominated. But it was the toughest category this year was Best Actress in a Musical, because you had, it was just, you had Audra McDonald, who was going to get nominated
Who's
for
gonna,
Dixie.
who's gonna win, right? Like, or not? Like, that's one of the things of, like, is it just she's gonna win and everyone else is happy to be nominated, or what do you think?
So most people I know, so I'm not a Tony voter, I should say, but I know many Tony voters. And, I think the general sense is Nicole Scherzinger is going to win for Sunset Boulevard. Audra has many, many Tonys. This would be a record. It would give her 7, which it would be the most individual performance Tonys for anyone if she won. But and she is revelatory in the role, but there are people who didn't like the way she sang it. She doesn't belt. She uses her legit voice in a lot of it. I actually thought it meant I could appreciate the songs in a new and different way. And I think everyone agrees that acting wise, her performance is spectacular. But Nicole Scherzinger was sort of an unknown quantity. I mean, yes, she was a pop star, but she'd never done Broadway. And it's a reinvention of a mediocre musical that she has a lot to do with. Jamie Lloyd's vision is key, but she was able to fulfill it because she's playing Norma Desmond, and at this, she's playing this aging silent movie star at the same time she's playing an aging pop star. It is this weird sort of happening in 2 timelines, and she holds it together. Will I be sad if Audra loses? Yes, because I really think it was a revelatory performance where I think Nicole's is an incredible performance,
Yeah, Sunset Boulevard and Gypsy are sort of interesting to me as well because they are rooted in periods in history that we're getting further away from, or the average audience member is getting further away from. I mean, I love both of those areas of history, but I'm kind of a geek. But it is sort of, as you're saying, as you're saying, when the film came out, I mean, I think even the act, it is Gloria Swanson. What was from that era. It was like it spoke to something that was of current events. And you were saying, like, I often wonder sometimes, like, if audiences, it can be tough for the average audience to sort of connect to what they're sort of trying to convey. But you're saying that there is that different layer to the current revival that perhaps, at least as Nicole is getting to it, it's like connecting. Oh, it's also this that I might recognize.
The way Lloyd does it, and it's funny, I didn't think of it until you were just talking about Gloria Swanson. Billy Wilder was already doing a meta thing by casting a silent movie star who was a has-been as his lead. And then, of course, there's that famous scene where Buster Keaton and all the other silent stars, they're all sitting around, I guess, playing poker or whatever. They're playing cards. And, Eric von Stroheim as her, not to go into the movie, but in a way, Jamie Lloyd, who is, the very hot British director who strips everything down now, he took that concept a step further. So you have her playing an aging pop star, playing an aging silent film star, but everybody's dressed in modern day all black clothing. They look like they're in a revival of the revival of Chicago. There's video constantly on live feed on stage, and of course there's the really famous opening act of the opening of Act 2 when Joe Gillis, played by Tom Francis, who really made a role that no one ever noticed before noticeable. He goes from the backstage, walks down the stairs, goes outside and sings the title tune in Schubert Alley. I mean, now it's become a thing. People wait. I mean, they have security guards who walk alongside him to make sure nobody comes in and messes it up. The orchestra is still playing on the stage. He's got the headset in. I mean, this is not 1950. This is decidedly 2025. So I think not knowing anything about silent film, not knowing anything about that era doesn't matter for this production. I mean, it really, for a lot of people, is probably just, oh, it's Nicole, an aging pop star, playing this part. With Gypsy, it's still very much rooted in the time period it takes place in. And George C. Wolfe has said it is not colorblind casting. This is very color conscious casting. Rose is black. I mean, this is very much a statement on race and how a striving black single mother in that era, or frankly any era, is going to be a very different character than a striving single white mother. I think it works. I certainly can't say I'm a historian, but it's not like there weren't interracial relationships back then. It's not like there wasn't a black circuit of entertainment back then. As far as I know, they haven't made big script changes. I mean, I haven't checked, but it was the Gypsy. I've seen Gypsy many times, and it was Gypsy. I think it really works, but I think in that case, it does take a little more knowledge of the time period. You know, people I know who didn't know the musical have gone. People who like theater but don't know theater, and they've said to me they don't understand why this is considered one of the greatest musicals ever written. And I just, I know, I'm like, if you don't understand, I don't know how to explain it to you. I think it's just obvious. But some of them said they found it kind of like slow, you know.
It's tremendous to me. I'd seen, it's up on my wall, but no one can see it. The Patti LuPone version from 2008,
So
and
good.
was one of my. It was shortly after. My wife and I had just gotten engaged around the time we'd seen it, but I was explaining to her how the Bernadette Peters one had come out pretty recently, and I
Yeah.
think there was a story about. I think Arthur Lawrence was like, "I kind of want another one, another revival of this before I die." With all
You know, I
love, the
didn't hate the
Bernadette.
Bernadette Peters. So
Yeah,
I like the Bernadette Peters one. It was in a way a bit like Audra in the sense that she approached the role very differently vocally, and she also, I think, was maybe the sexiest Rose we've ever had. And so at that very end, when her daughter tells you really would have been something, it really felt very believable in a different
Nestle.
way.
Yeah,
But, you know, I will say this. I think Audra is tremendous in Gypsy, but I did not love this production. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't love it. The Patti one was so great, and everybody's arc, Rose's, Herbie's, and Gypsy's, were all just so moving for me and so involving for me. This is the Audra show. And
yeah.
and it really is. And even though I love Danny Burstein, he plays it, I think intentionally. I think he was directed this way to fade into the background. I know he was nominated for a Tony, and good for him, but it really, I was sort of disappointed. I didn't, it did, him being such a milquetoast did make the final blow up powerful, but I preferred what Boyd Gaines did, which was
Yeah.
you could see that fire throughout, and then he'd sort of stuff it down. And
Well, Jack Klugman originated it, and then
yeah,
most people think of Jack Klugman. I mean, I obviously didn't see the original, but Jack
you're not
Klugman,
that old.
yeah, Jack Klugman, people would think of as what you're describing, like not playing it as a milquetoast, given his later roles and so forth. So, Laura Benanti, who I'm a big fan of,
So good.
is so good in
Yeah.
that. And you know, this was a show before ever saw it live. Again, being a theater geek, had listened to the cast recording all the time and loved it. And when I always liked "All I Need Is the Girl," it's a great song.
Mhm.
When she conveyed the devastation of like what's happening, of like someone feeling like this is, oh, I love this guy, he's singing about me, and then like her, what she's doing while he's performing, and she's not taking away from him, but you can't help but what you're sort of watching this through her eyes, is so good. And as you're saying, like everyone in that is so
Yeah.
good. And
And
so
I did not love Joy Woods in this. I mean, she is a lovely, lovely voice. She is beautiful. She did not convey for me the transformation into Gypsy. I mean, my daughter just kept saying it was like The Librarian. You take off her glasses, let down her hair, and she's gorgeous. Like, it really didn't feel like a transformation for me.
no, it's hard. I mean, yeah, Laura was astonishing in that, and um I'm a big fan. I want to, you'd mentioned Glenn Ross. That's another one that um get you know, I often, because you know, you, if you live long enough, you'll feel like, wasn't that just
This
done?
was
And then
I
it's,
think
you know,
this was my
sometimes,
4th time seeing it. Like, it's ridiculous, and I don't like it. I just go and I go, "Why am I here?" You know, I admit I don't, while I will, and this is not about Mamet's politics, okay? I've just never been into Mamet. I think this is his best play, although I kind of find Oleana more interesting. I don't know if it's a better play. I just find it personally more engaging. But you know, this is a play actors like to do because they're really, you know, it must be very fun to do. But I just don't give a shit. I mean, I really don't. And this was not, beyond that, this was not a great production. It was not well cast. I love Kieran Culkin. I've seen Kieran Culkin. Please, I've seen Kieran Culkin play J. Smith Cameron's child in a play. So then having to watch them have whatever weird quasi affair in Succession was very hard for me. Like, I mean, I think he's a really good actor, but I think that he is really not right for Roma, and
Yeah.
it showed.
Well, this was one of the ones where they talk about when I saw he was cast, and I was like, really? They got, this Oscar winner for Williamson? Because I was just thinking that's the role he would play. Like, it's sort of, and then someone say, no, he's playing role. I'm like, what? That's just complete. Like, I haven't seen it, so maybe he does it, but just feels like the Venn diagram of roles of like Pacino, Joe Mantegna, and him would not seem to, there should be much overlap. So it is a curious choice. It is a very I don't say politically dated, because unfortunately, I think toxic masculinity is still an issue for now. It is very dated of its pay, and what they're talking about in their piece. But I guess I've always enjoyed some of the language of and whatever.
It's masterfully done. I just don't care about any of these people. And even Shelley, who's supposed to be, you're supposed to be emotionally engaged with him. I don't care what happens to him.
Yeah. Who plays Levine in this?
Bob Odenkirk, and he got a nomination, and he was good. I mean, look, everyone except Culkin did what they needed to do. My favorite person in it was the always underrated Michael McKean, who is just always a joy. But the one moment that I laughed, I think I laughed all by myself. People probably thought I was a crazy person, but when the second scene in the first act, it's him and Bill Burr, and when the lights went up, Michael McKean had such a look of sheer exhaustion. Like, you already knew the scene. You knew it was that look of, oh my God, I have to listen to this person. And it made me laugh.
Yeah,
it's a small part.
Well, he's such a great actor. It's interesting with the casting of the version I saw almost 20 years ago of Alan Alda, one of my favorite actors. So that was wonderful to see him. And of course, in the film, it's Jack Lemmon. I think both of those actors come with so much already affection, and they do great work in this. So seeing both of them, as soon as seeing Alan Alda, kind of this broken down guy, and he's great in it, and Jack Lemmon is great in it, I think that carries you through. And I think you feel for them. But yes, it can be tricky. I think I've listened to a version of it with Richard Dreyfuss. He's good, but he can be less.
Someone I can't have any sympathy for. But
so there you go.
What I'm saying makes sense, is that they bring something with them. I mean, when you just already care for someone, that does some of the work. And I don't watch Better Call Saul. I mean, I'm aware of it, obviously, but I mean, and I like Odenkirk fine, but he doesn't come with that for me. I think part of it too is, even though I do feel that the whole thing about toxic males, I mean, it's very, very now, despite it being a period piece, but like, I'm really done. I think I'm really done with pieces. I saw that, and I saw Sam Shepard's Curse of the Starving Class like a few weeks before, and I was like, I think I'm done here. Like, I'm good. I don't need to see these plays anymore.
Yeah, I've seen theories of a version of it where they cast it's all women.
Well, they've talked about doing all women. I mean, the rumor is, because there had been a rumor for a while there was going to be an all women version coming in. I think Amy Morton was the one behind that. And now the rumor is that they'll replace this cast. But I mean, I don't know if it has any validity. I will just say one thing about Glengarry Glen Ross, and talking about miscast revivals and Othello. But you know what? People are so hungry right now for celebrities. These shows are making bank despite terrible reviews or mid reviews, and they're making back their money. So this is what people want, right? People want stars, and they want stars in titles that are tried and, that are tested. So I don't know. I don't know what to say except that Othello was even worse than Glengarry Glen Ross, and it just made back all its money. I mean, it's terrible.
Um,
It's truly, truly awful.
oh my God. I adore you, Raven. So
I'm not saying anything anybody. Denzel knows it's awful. He like mumbles and he seems bored. He's like, when can I kill her? Like, it's really just, it's not good.
yeah, it's always tough because you can't necessarily blame the text. This is actually a pretty good play, right? Like, so
But
you're kind of
it's a challenging play. It's
yeah.
very hard to do well. There was a good version that Sam Gold did, of all people, because he's done some of the worst Shakespeare I've ever seen in my life. But the one he did with David Aiello and Daniel Craig at New York Theater Workshop was really, really great. And that was
Yeah.
within the last decade.
Um, my wife and I saw the version with Philip Seymour Hoffman, um,
Oh,
which was also terrible. I've not actually seen, so I don't think
wait,
I've
where
seen
was
it.
that?
I wish I could remember. I will let you know after this. I'm blanking on where it was. It wasn't. It was
Wow.
off. It was off
Yeah,
Broadway. It wasn't.
I don't remember that.
And there are. Um, I think the performance we saw was written about because some of the moments of people talking back at the stage, like it was Mr. Science 3000 was quoted, but like everyone left after the first act, and so
Oh my God, I'm looking this up. I must know.
people, so someone came and asked my wife and I to kind of come down, please come down to the front. I think my wife was sort of, we're good. Philip Seymour Hoffman was wearing a um
Wait,
green
this is nuts.
sweater.
Peter Sellers, the big opera director, directed it. And but then John Ortiz played Othello? How is that possible?
Yeah, Othello was not black. So that
No,
was the
I know
first
it's
sort
John
of shift.
Ortiz.
That was the
Oh my
first shift
God.
of
There was one, and I believe it was in DC with Patrick Stewart, like where they did it race inverted. But like, I don't know, just Othello's challenging enough just to do in a straightforward manner. Just do it that way, people. Wow.
yeah. I will, if people are interested in seeing it. We've got Lawrence Fishburne and Kenneth Branagh. I think the film is they're both good, and if you like this play, yeah. So it's interesting because you keep steering me to topics I want to talk about when I'm trying to
Oh,
keep my own things sort of. But with the we've seen this with like the movie stars. Um, it was once like TV star. I remember like it would be a TV star being in a play, and it would often have a background. But this seems a sort of matinee level. I haven't, in my own experience, you
yeah.
might remember differently. I've not seen of like
I've
Denzel
never
Washington,
seen
George
anything like
Clooney.
this. George Clooney, Robert Downey Jr., which is that truly, I mean, look, Robert did a nice job for somebody who does not do stage. I thought he did a really nice job in an absolutely awful, terrible play, like truly just trash. And it made me sad. And I've thought about this before, that especially with new plays, to when stars hitch themselves to a new play, like they could really make an unknown playwright become a discovery. And I mean, this wasn't on an unknown playwright. He has a Pulitzer for Disgraced, but I mean, this was just, it was allegedly about AI, but it sounded like it was written by AI. I kind of think maybe it was. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm really not kidding. I think he may have had parts written by AI to sort of prove a point, although he hasn't said that. But it was dreadful. But I mean, that just, you couldn't get a ticket. I mean, it was Robert Downey Jr. People wanted to see Robert Downey Jr. And he was on stage with people like Ruthie Ann Miles, who's a Tony winner, in like a complete throwaway, terrible part. So it really shows you the sort of levels, right? Like Ruthie Ann Miles, big theater star, but she's not going to sell out a show on her own. And George Clooney's Good Night and Good Luck, which has generally been better liked than Othello and McNeil and Glengarry did not get good reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Good Night and Good Luck got weird reviews. Like, people either really liked it or didn't like it. I think it's terrible. but I also understand it is not badly done. It's just the movie on stage with a really offensive montage at the end that was not well thought through and is meant to sort of bring up your righteous ire, but your righteous ire should have already been up because you paid $900 to just see that. um and and look, I think George Clooney and I probably agree politically on a lot of stuff, but like, if the dude wants to be a politician, he should just be a politician and not write an op-ed in the Times to get Biden to drop out and put a show on Broadway that's $900 a ticket that's telling liberal people that we're in a new fascist era. Like, thank you. I know all this. Go actually do something. I am impressed, though, that he is it's going to be live streamed on June 7th on CNN.
Mhm.
And I think, that's going to obviously cost money, and it's not going to cost anything for people at home. And I do really respect that. I wish, they're going to put up the money for that, clearly. And I think he feels strongly that the show has a message people need to hear. I mean, the message of the show is that, we've got to speak truth to power, and that the media really, that objective media is a thing of the past. But he also does a montage at the end where he has Tucker Carlson next to Rachel Maddow. And while I think that you can criticize both, I'm not saying Maddow is perfect at all. I don't think you should equate them either. It also has the towers falling. I mean, I'll just be honest, trigger warning, like literally the plane going into the tower, not falling, the plane going into the tower. Like, I'm like, what are you trying to say? There's this editorializing in the media is different than actual bad shit that happened. Like,
Yeah.
why is this all together? It really muddied his message, and it ends with Elon doing Sieg Heil. And people were literally like screaming in the audience. They were literally like, no. I mean, I don't know if those people, who are all probably very rich people, could then like go out and do something with their money. Maybe that would be great. But no, they went home and congratulated themselves on, resisting the fascist regime by spending $900 on a ticket. I mean,
Yeah, that's such a good point. The the montage, well, as you describe it, just flashes back to every student film I was involved with, and I could, you
Where's
were
Tom
very,
Otten is killing the dog? I mean,
you're just being very didactic and very into your point. It's almost it's sort of, there's been parodies upon satires of that style of storytelling, which is unfortunate. I mean, I've alluded to Murrow's work a lot when writing about what's going on, especially how he went after McCarthy or whatever. It stands on its own. I think I wish that he would trust that, like, people can connect the dots without having to be, oh, this is
well,
what.
and he muddies it, because it really, I mean, if what he's saying, which I think is what he's saying, is speak truth to power, and that we have to, when there's disinformation, we need to stand up and say, like, this isn't only a lie, it's a dangerous lie. But, then why are you putting Maddow, and then who's going to do this, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what he meant at the end. I think he just wanted to rile people up. I mean, look, we're riled up. I get it, but
Well,
like,
Murrow would have been dismissed as a Lawrence O'Donnell or Rachel Maddow at the time, because he was actively going after this, and
yeah,
what he was saying could be considered advocacy. So that's the challenge. And as someone who's a journalist, it's like, if you actually describe what is happening, you are going to be and I've seen it in the sense of the way it is on both sides. It's kind of, people get very upset if you do start criticizing anyone outside the team. So if you're kind of like, well, here's some issues happening within the Democratic Party, Democrats get very, oh, what about
no, I know there's a group
fascism?
think
So
on both sides. It's just
yeah,
been more effective on the right, because they're able to get their people in power because people coalesce. But
yeah,
again, I hear what you're saying, that if he's showing Maddow, but then he's showing Carlson, I honestly don't think they thought through that
absolutely.
montage. First of all, what you said is that it didn't need it, but beyond that, they didn't think it through.
Oh
And
yeah.
David Cromer directed it, and he's such a good director. I'm sort of surprised, and I should say the rest of the play is fine. It's design wise, it's incredible. Seeing the newsroom and all the vintage stuff. I actually know someone who runs something called the Museum of Interesting Things, and he lent them some old like, newsroom stuff that he has in his collection. You know, it is really just the movie on stage. Clooney does a nice job. He's not trying to be like, I'm movie star Clooney. He does a nice job trying to channel who Murrow was. I just don't think at the end of the day, it's agitprop, right? I mean, which nothing wrong with that, but that is what it is.
Well, it becomes very hard. It's one, the Crucible didn't end with like a, hey, by the way, this is a lot like, here's some clips of, the
McCarthy, that's
blacklist.
funny.
They kind of like, you got it, and because he's making it so expressly political, it just seems very easy for the right, especially this faux populist right, that Musk himself is a billionaire they have no shame in just stating like, oh, well, they attacked us.
Yeah.
They're attacking you, loyal MAGA supporters who can't afford. Look at all these New Yorker rich people paying $900 for a ticket to laugh at you, which is how they kind of spin all of this. It is, I appreciate though that he is sort of putting it so that it can be viewed on.
Yeah, putting it on CNN, I thought, again, it cannot be cheap. And good for him for doing that. Like, I do respect that. And as I said to people, it made back its money. I hope any money he makes, he puts into good causes. And I actually think he will. I just don't think it's a great piece of theater. And I don't think it quite does what it expects, what it thinks it's like. What does he say? I don't think that word means what you think it means. Like, I don't think it quite does what he thinks it does.
Well, it's sort of like about putting the challenge of taking a movie and putting it on stage, which brings me to, again, people watching probably can't see, but right above on my wall, my wife and and one of her best friends, they went to New York for her birthday. They saw Death Becomes Her and adored it. They had a delightful time and got me the autographed. It was Broadway Cares Equity Night, so they got the signed poster for me, so it's window card, so it's above me. I've planned to see it. I'm going to be in New York. I'll contact you later. I plan to be in New York. I'm a big fan of the film. I will preface this. I saw it when I was in my first year of college, and in a dollar movie theater on campus, I think it was amongst like 3 other people. And it was speaking to me. And I think when they were talking about adapting it, because sort of set the stage, it opens with Meryl Streep doing this kind of grand number disco, and it's meant to be like, oh, because that was sort of the shorthand. She's doing disco and it's whatever. She's a loser. And what I loved, when I was first reading about the play, was they're saying, oh, we are actually kind of sort of embrace that camp. And actually, she's going to be this icon, this sort of queer icon that Streep's character had become, and this is at her high point, not a kind of low point, because this isn't going to be an awesome number, which you sort of do. And I think that's the idea of like, they really do think about how they are adapting this movie to the stage. The concerns, obviously, about the misogyny, about it's like, oh, this is just 2 women who hate each other and are catty, and there's obviously been there's humor, and you go back and also the idea of like women as frenemies and great, but they take this and really make sort of adapt to it. It's not just that, because the original is the idea that the only moral character, the person who sort of redeems himself, is Ernest, Bruce Willis's character. And here, I think they do make a lot of smart changes that, while maintaining sort of the humor consistently throughout the show. So I'm delighted to sort of see it from what my wife and friends said.
It is so much fun. Marco Panett, who wrote the book, he didn't just, people have said to me, like, the work that, we've talked about how he didn't just put the movie script on stage. Like, Tootsie, almost all the best lines in that were from the movie. But here, he keeps the things that are really iconic, like now a warning. I mean, he's got to keep that stuff. But really, the rest of it's just completely new, not just the lines, but really the second act just goes in a different direction, doesn't end the way the movie ends. And, then I think rewriting the book that way, and like you said, turning her into this sort of, she's not a loser. She's this, gay icon, and she's hilarious and she's funny. I mean, her song, the opening song, is for the gays.
Gays.
I mean, it's a wonderful wordplay. Yeah, it's just it is so, it's the kind of show that you come out feeling so great. It looks gorgeous. The dancing is gorgeous. I mean, honestly, it's not even a complaint. Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child, you expect her to have this sort of like, diva big voice. And she kind of doesn't. Like as Viola Von Horn, she's fine. She looks great, but she doesn't sort of slay the way I thought she would. She was fine. And it doesn't know how to end, because how do you end this? But at least it tries to end it on an uplifting note, which I appreciate. It doesn't end on some really bleak, dark note. And I mean, being a goth, you'd think I'd love that, but it wouldn't have been appropriate for what this was. It ends sort of feeling like, women can choose each other, which is really lovely. Megan Hilty and Jennifer Simard are absolutely spectacular. I mean, they land every laugh. They look so good. They sing so well. I mean, and they just have such chemistry together. When people say, I just want something to escape the world for 2.5 hours, I'm like, go to see Death Becomes Her. That's your ticket.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And a lot of theater can, thinking of Good Night Love can be so, even if you agree, I'd imagine it could be exhausting, especially when you get this sort of op-ed at the end. And this was sort of classic theater, someone who sort of loves classic musical theater.
Yeah.
Like, I want a grand, choreography and great, outfits and costume changes and
incredible effects.
And incredible effects
that they do, because they have to recreate those moments in the movie where like she has a hole in her torso and her head is twisted. It's really incredible what they do. It looks great.
Yeah, so I'm pleased that that's doing well. That's very sort of, but in the time we have left, I wanted to talk to you.
Right.
So
we always do this. We don't get too far.
You'd mentioned about you've written about sort of gendered character categories, particularly in the Tonys, and I think it's this issue is particularly, it's always been an issue, but particularly this time with Cole Escala, non-binary, but plays a female character in Oh Mary Todd Lincoln, who was a woman, and in fact the role has been played by a
Betty
woman.
Gilpin played it after Cole. Yeah, and I mean, look, this isn't the first year this has been an issue, right? It was an issue a few years ago when 2 non-binary performers, Alex Newell and J. Harrison G., both won Tonys, but were forced to compete in the actor category, which, in Alex Newell's case was very much like Cole Escala's case. They were playing female characters, cisgender female characters who've been played by actors who are cisgender females. And then they were forced to pick a category. And I love what Alex Newell said about it. They said that they picked actor because they said, I'm an actor, I'm acting. So therefore, I'm going to compete in Best Actor. But it just, why should it be this way? I'm a nominator for the Drama Desk. I can't remember if we said that before, that it's like, that we do all the off-Broadway, off, and Broadway. And we did away with gendered acting categories. We now just have outstanding featured performer and outstanding lead performer, and we award two prizes. So we haven't reduced the number of people who get awards. And, as nominators, certainly we're aware, look, I'm a woman, I'm a feminist. I understand the argument, oh no, if we get rid of gendered categories, everything will be dominated by men. But I got to tell you, in theater, that really doesn't seem to be the case. If anything, it's sometimes hard. You're like, wait, this is way too imbalanced toward women. And at the end of the day, even if that did happen, even if they did away with gendered categories and suddenly all of them were going to men, don't we have to try to move forward? I mean, we have to try to
Yeah,
move forward, right? People know that there aren't two genders anymore. Why should we force people into those boxes? It's just
I feel like
incredibly
that's what you
unfair.
should address, right? Like you should address that bias. So if that happens, address that bias and just
Yeah.
necessarily trying to correct for the bias. It would be sort of like having separate categories for performers who are black or different,
Well, or lighting
and
designers, male and female, like it's
yeah.
just ridiculous. And there's no reason for it. And why should people, it's much more inclusive when we just get rid of gender. So I
Um
don't know. I'd love to
and
see it. And the
and
Tonys keep saying they'll do it, and then they don't.
and your point is also an interesting one because I think we're seeing a lot in politics. I've written about this because my own background, I don't like racial or gender essentialism because it often tends to be sometimes if you're sort of like I'm this group, it's very easy to be like what makes people not part of this group.
Mm.
If being a black person has a sort of automatic cultural specificity, then it becomes in certain ways what becomes exclusive, and we've seen that somewhat with what is a woman, with what J.K. Rowling has done, and with others, and J.K. Rowling especially, but in politics, and Trump has weaponized this. They've taken it from a sense of this is the feminist argument. Nikki Haley was making that point when Nikki Haley, when running for president, attacking Dylan Mulvaney of all people just for doing a book, but like this is someone by her being one of us, she's taking away from us because she's just
Yeah.
trying to exist.
As opposed to
And
it being an expansion. And also, why do people care so much how people identify? It's very weird. It's
well,
frankly very
yeah,
strange.
well, not that Cole identifies as a woman specifically.
No,
Cole
they
is
identify,
non-binary,
yeah, as
but like
non-binary.
with Jinx Monsoon, who does identify, they would say, "Oh, this is a role that was taken from a woman," and of course they would point out what they do to weaponize this. They would point out the one. And they're
Yeah.
always great women, great performers who don't get nominated. Sutton Foster didn't get nominated this time. And they would
Yeah.
point out, oh, this woman lost because this man took the part. They make it about, which is a common sort of conservative thing. It's like this person is taking away from
Yeah,
you.
it's always
And
about what you're losing, right? I mean, that's how they rally you. So instead of seeing it more as inclusion, but they think inclusion is a dirty word. So
yeah. But
you
so
go
I'm
do.
all for just being great featured performer, and then let's address the biases. Be like, hey, why are they all men, or why they
And
and
I mean,
and
it
again, it
hasn't been
doesn't
that
be
way since we did it with the Drama Desk. I mean, to be fair, as nominators, we do keep an eye on, who we're nominating. That doesn't mean, and this isn't, then you get into that argument of merit, as if merit is this thing that just exists like in a vacuum. Like, as you said, there are always great performances that don't get nominated, great work that doesn't get nominated. But at the end of the day, if we try to balance it, and um, we're not inflexible. We're not like it has to be 5 and 5. We're not like that at all.
no, no.
But we want to make sure it's not 10 women. I mean, that seems fair. But then our voters do what they do, and it has not turned out that they pick men. That has just not been the case. Or pick men more than women. So I just think it makes me sad. The conservatives are going to say what they say, but it makes me sad that people on the left, worry so much about, that things will automatically be against women. I don't know.
Yeah, it's and this is interesting because you're someone who likes drag. I like drag, and there's been debates about whether Mary Tyler Lincoln is a drag performance per se, as opposed to Cole playing a woman, you know, any different. And if it were sort of you cast a man and Death Becomes Her to play one of the lead roles, and they were able to sort of do it. It's sort of there was discussions of like what is a drag performance versus sort of just playing a woman. Like, is there a heightened
Yeah.
thing
Well, you
to
look
it?
at somebody like Charles Bush what Charles Bush does, and he doesn't like to be called drag because he's like, I'm just playing a woman. And he
Mhm.
does play, even though he can be campy, what he's doing is so different than, like, say, what Lip Synca's doing, or, like, I mean, it's all just, it's performance.
Yes. And again, some of the right wingers have tried to call that sort of, well, this is like blackface, which it is not.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
but
I haven't heard that one.
no, it's a common one, and I've written about this. It's interesting, sort of how the right, particularly Trump, the big Cats lover. I've written, of course, about how he actually believed that there's a song in Cats, literally called Cats. That was the song Betty Buckley sings. Her big triumphant number is called Cats,
I don't
and
think she actually even has a lyric, Cats, in that.
and I said, whatever you might think of the musical Cats and Eventual Lloyd Webber. Um, at least there is not a song in Cats just actually called Cats. They actually tried harder than that. But anyway, Kitty Center, there's like getting rid of wokeness of woke musicals. There was, and the great Harvey Fierstein had, like, said, oh, they banned me from this. They banned, and Rick Grinnell came out being like, oh, well, you're just being this unflexible liberal. Of course you aren't banned. And it was like, okay, well, you do understand that he has 3 Tonys. All 3 of them are for productions in which
With
drag plays a
drag,
role.
yeah,
And it's just
Lacage,
this,
yeah.
well, because for it always seems it's like 20, they're to kind of 20 years behind, right? So it's like, oh, Lacage isn't woke now, or it's not bad, or Hairspray isn't bad. It's mainstream now, so it's not woke or terrible drag now. It is not bad. Like, they're always so behind, and you have to remind them, no, that is drag. It is literally what you just banned was this. And like when they were upset that Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't want to, like, they canceled the production of Hamilton at the
Yeah, at the Kennedy
Kennedy
Center.
Center, and they were complaining about it and everything. It's like, okay, well, when this came out 10 years ago, you would have complained about, whoa, that you're casting black actors as founding fathers and whatever. But now it's Hamilton. So of course it's sort of kind of like you're always sort of late to the party is a consistent theme. Um
I know we don't have time, but I want to talk about maybe Happy Ending and Dead Outlaw and the
Please
plays.
do.
Can we do
Yes.
this?
Yeah, we've got plenty of time
Okay.
to for that. Please go ahead.
Well, so what are we talking about first? You want to talk about plays? We haven't talked about plays yet.
Yes. We did with a bit with the movie star
We haven't talked
version.
about the good
Yes,
plays.
what are some good plays that won't cost you $900?
Well, and I mean, not $900, but it really has been a strong season, despite those terrible celebrity plays. It's been a really strong season for other original plays. We have 2 Pulitzer Prize winners competing for Best Play. English, which is a play from, I forget, I guess 2022 or 23. It won the Pulitzer off Broadway, but that production transferred to Broadway. So therefore, it's considered a new play for Broadway and as up for Best Play. And it's the first time that a play by a Middle Eastern woman has been nominated. And it really is, it's a very beautiful play. Sorry, I'm like, and it's an all Middle Eastern cast also, but it's a beautiful play about people in Iran trying to pass the test as English as a foreign language test. They're prepping for that, and just how much sort of undue influence American culture and English has on people, even in other countries, even countries where they don't really want to even be involved with us. It's quite a beautiful play. And then you have Purpose by Brendan Jacobs Jenkins, whose name I'm always getting his name wrong. Tell me I got it right that time, even though I've interviewed him and I love him. I'm always getting his name wrong. But it's called Purpose. He won the Tony last year for Appropriate. Appropriate had been a play off Broadway more than a decade ago, but that was an entirely new production. This one, Purpose, was commissioned by Steppenwolf in Chicago, and it premiered last year, and then they transferred that production. I mean, it's a really, really stunning portrait of an incredibly and hilariously dysfunctional Black family that were civil rights icons. A lot of people think it's the Jesse Jackson family, but it's kind of like, I mean, it's a fictional family, but you know, they were civil rights icons, and you know, things have not gone well for them. And the first act is absolutely uproariously funny, and the second act is quite devastating in sort of a quiet way at first. And it's gotten a lot of nominations. So, and it just won the Pulitzer this year. So it's going to be interesting to see if those two plays duke it out. But then the one that I think is going to probably sneak in there and maybe steal it is Kimberly Bellflower's John Proctor as the villain, which I absolutely adored. That's another show that has been kicking around for a while. It's just new to Broadway. It's been having productions for the last, I think, like 4 years or so regionally, and also at universities. And it's about a bunch of high school girls in a small town in rural Georgia who are learning the crucible as there's sort of this whole scandal in the community about adultery and inappropriate relationships. And it's funny, it's smart. And this is funny. This is a show that I think is extremely political, but galvanizing in a way that is useful. And just in terms of speaking truth to power. It's got Sadie Sink from the Netflix's Stranger Things. And again, this is a great example, I think, of a star, maybe not a George Clooney, but somebody with some influence hitching herself to a show that she thought was really important. And it's made the career, Kimberly Bellflower's career. I mean, and I do think I think it might pull it out. So,
Yeah,
highly recommend.
And that being done well. And I've read your review, so
Yes.
folks check out. It was a
Time out.
really good a review of this play. Anything else you want folks to know about this coming, or anything to look for if they happen to be watching, or any you know, you've given some recommendations for people to see in these plays, obviously, but anything else?
Well, the two other shows I want to talk about really quickly are May Not Be Ending That Out. Oh, sorry, it cut out for me for a second. So what did you?
You're
just
back. Oh, just the time we have left. Is there any recommendations or shows that you think people should see that hasn't gotten sort of an attention? I know there were two you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, so maybe Happy Ending and Dead Outlaw, two of the musicals that are up for Best Musical. Dead Outlaw transferred from off-Broadway. It's the same team that did The Band's Visit. I've got to tell you, I did not love The Band's Visit the way everybody else did. This has nothing to do with The Band's Visit, okay? It's just the same writers and director. But it's an only in America crazy story about a terrible, total loser criminal whose dead body ended up going on an adventure. I won't say more. I mean, you could look it up on Wikipedia, but it's just such a unique, darkly funny musical that also in a way is a bit uplifting. I mean, it really is about the fact that like you should make the most of whatever moments you have, even if you're dead. I highly recommend that. And then maybe Happy Ending. This is definitely hands down my favorite musical of the season. I do, as much as I like Dead Outlaw and Death Becomes Her, I really hope maybe Happy Ending takes the big prize. When I heard there was going to be a show about robots falling in love, I was like, I was like, this show's not for me. This sounds so twee and so awful. And then I went and I was absolutely enthralled. It is a completely original musical. It's not based on anything. It's by two guys who met at NYU's musical theater program. One from Korea, one is American. They actually premiered this in Asia. It's been very big in Asia for a few years, but they completely retranslated it for America. They're like, they're not even translate. They were explaining that it really had to be different because we're a different culture. But it's such a beautiful piece, and it's got more than two people, but it's mainly Darren Criss and Helen J. Shen. They were helper robots that were retired by the people who own them, so they're living out whatever days they have left, which they don't know because you know their technology, they will eventually fail. They're living out in this retirement community where they're not really allowed to leave. But they end up connecting, and I don't want to give it all away, but they go on an adventure. And I mean, I'm getting verklempt just talking about it. It is this beautiful piece about mortality, but it's told about robots, and it's got one of the best books I've ever seen. When it's meant to be funny, it's funny. When it's meant to be moving, it's moving. The songs, I think if I heard them on an album, because I heard some of them in advance and I was like, they're fine, but it may not be like an original cast that I go to because I love it, but in the context of the show, those songs are great. It's just something that works beautifully. It also has some of the best design you'll ever see. It's incredible. There are multiple moments that are breathtaking, where you just go when you see something revealed. And it's just completely, and Michael Arden, who directed it, who directed really great revivals of Parade and Once on This Island. Like, it just, the work he does in this to make it sing, it's great. I highly recommend it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, chatting with me about this. I look forward to it every time, and we'll definitely do it again. I will be in touch with you
Yes.
when I'm in New York. And so, Raven Snook, where can people find you on the internets and so?
I mean, sadly on Facebook, because I'm a middle-aged mom. I'm much too addicted to that. But I'm also on Instagram. That's pretty much, those are the two things that I do. So, but
Great.
if you friend me on Facebook and you tell me like, hey, I like theater, I will accept you.
Yes, and I think your name, just typing your name and
Yeah, type in
review,
my name, and that's,
it
yeah.
will
And I
pop
mean,
up
on
all of your
Instagram,
stuff.
I'm Diva Raven, but it's, that's, you'll find me.
All
There aren't
right.
a
Well,
lot of Raven Snooks.
no. Well, thank you so much. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Bye.